Okay, hello everyone. We're right at 1 o'clock, and so we're gonna get going right away. So hopefully you can see me, and if you can't, and if you want to, just you can change your view. Just gonna bring Mark in here. You can change your view. Here we go. To gallery view, and then you'll be able to see some faces. Oh, well, two faces. All right. So I'm just going to check a couple
There we
of
go.
things. Hello.
Hi,
I'm gonna get going in a minute.
for sure.
Just welcome everybody here. Just let me make sure. There we go. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm really excited for today's class. It's a little bit out of the ordinary, and I am recording. We had about 34 women register, so that was really exciting. And it was not last minute. It's probably been a lifetime coming, but just kind of launched it at the last minute. And at the very last minute, I asked Mark to come in. So and just join us for 10 minutes, because I think he also has a perspective on this that is really, really valuable. So something brought everybody here today. And so maybe it's because you have already identified yourself as someone with a highly sensitive nervous system, an open nervous system, an intuitive nervous system. And maybe you have kind of an inkling that has led to some distress in your daily life, even distress in your body, distress with fatigue or pain or anxiety. And also this one, step further that we're going to take today, you might have an inkling that it has affected your ability to receive the wealth and abundance and the happiness or even the career that really helps you to feel supported and satisfied in your life. And so that's what we're going to dive into today in the 3 essential steps that I have distilled it down to. I'm going to touch on for empaths to step into wealth and abundance, because I have only really put this together, connected the dots myself. So for those of you, some of you know me, some of you don't, some of you have been in my world for a while. I'm Madeline Eames, and I feel like I'm at an AA meeting. I'm Madeline Eames, and I'm an empath. I'm Madeline Eames, and I've been a psychotherapist for like close to 4 decades now. And this information that I'm offering up today is something that's been only really obvious to me in the last 4 or 5 years. And so it's become really a part of who I am to make sure that this gets out to the world. Because if there's others of you that are just kind of making your way through the fog with this, I've been through the fog and I'm coming out the other side. So that's exciting. And I'm here. I've invited my partner, my husband in life and love, and also in work, to join me for a few minutes, Mark. And we work together at the Bill Nelms Pain and Research Center. We present a lot of classes together. But this is the first time, I think, that you've actually stepped into my world.
Oh, into the fog. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I
Not
get
sure
to
what's
lead this
lurking
time,
in
I
the
guess.
fog.
You will find out. Good. We are being recorded. So for those of you that have to step off early, because I have a feeling I'll go a little over an hour, no worries. I know some of you have to step out for appointments. So let's get started.
Mhm.
So I told you a little bit about myself, and I'd love to know how you ended up here. Our way of communicating today is through the chat box, so please feel free to make comments in there, ask questions, let me know what brought you here, so I can really kind of tailor what I'm talking about to the group. So we moved, and I'll let Mark add, give some additional comments here. But we made a move about 4 years ago to Kelowna, to a new city, maybe 5 years ago now. And I had already been working in a really, really busy private practice doing trauma therapy. Had 2 kids, busy life. Moved to a new place very shortly after that, a little while after that, I guess. COVID happened. And to say that I wasn't aware of my own nervous system and how I felt would be not true, because I was aware. And when I look back now, I was aware I was getting tired. It was getting harder to get up in the morning. But I didn't know that this wasn't really kind of normal. When you look out at your life and you go, well, everybody else seems to be like doing it. I mean, does anybody else feel that way? You look out and you think, wow, how does she do it? What's wrong with me? So we never really have an out. So because we didn't know too many people, my life got quiet. And then all of a sudden my work went online. And what I really noticed then was like my whole nervous system felt like it collapsed. And I could get myself to the computer to do my classes, and I could show up, and I did enjoy that. But I think what I started to realize over time was that I was really, really tired. And so this has been and I didn't know what was happening at the time. And I'm in the industry. That's how insidious this is. Then I realized I had a moment where, Mark, I don't know if you remember, we were at my sister-in-law Kim's 50th birthday party. And I was talking with all of my siblings. And I realized through our conversation that my experience growing up in my family was dramatically different than everybody else's. And until that time, I'd never really contemplated the word empath. But I kind of had a little sort of aha wake up moment. And I started to research this. And it led me on a path that's changed everything. Trial and error, experimenting, and then realizing the pain clinic that we talked to a lot of the same people. So this is a picture of me just from this week, very recently, with very loud hip hop music in it, like a kickboxing gym that I couldn't even have done maybe 6 months ago, a year ago. And now I finally feel like I'm coming out the other side. So I want to shorten that path for other people from my own experience. And that's what we're going to talk to today. So that's me. Mark, what have you, coming from your perspective as the other, person really in my life, you've known me for a long time. I'm curious what you have noticed and how that, say whatever you want to say. How that impacts our work too.
It's interesting because, as you say, we deal with patients who've got really, sensitive nervous systems. Some of those end up in chronic pain. What I didn't realize is how different your nervous system is as an empath. And how like you said, your experience compared to your 3 siblings is different, because the 3 of them, and it's not that any of you had it any better or worse as siblings. I mean, I know your sisters and your brother very well, and it's just interesting how you reflect on that. Like, you experienced growing up differently, because I think you're a sensitive person. And I remember the first time you said that to me, I'm like, what do you mean you're a sensitive person? It's like, it didn't click. And I mean, like you say, we're in the business, but being aware that empaths function and perceive things really, really differently is a bit of an eye opener. And I still, I'm still learning today, how different it is, and how you tend to internalize things, and you're always trying to make it better for everybody else or fix things. And that must create a tremendous amount of energy within you, which you don't let out, compared to me, who just like says something stupid and gets on with it. You've always said, like, I don't know how he does it. He just gets up and, okay, let's move on. Next. Okay. Which is not always the healthiest way. And maybe a balance between the two. I realized how different we are. But what I can say is that amount of energy that you've internalized, and we can see that in our patients as well with chronic pain, it's got to go somewhere. And it must be really exhausting and tiring. And so some people burn out, some people retreat into themselves. And I didn't even realize this was happening because, I spent a lot of time still out of town, probably 40% of the week I was gone, or the weeks or the year I was gone, because I was working out of town, because we still run a clinic in San Manon as well as Kelowna. So I wasn't there a lot of the time. And, I didn't realize how exhausted you were. So, even me, it's like, I'd come home and think like, what are you tired? Like, okay.
Why are you so,
let's go
how
for a
could you
bike ride.
possibly be tired?
I'll go for a ride then, just like, why? And I
Yeah.
didn't realize it. I mean, I can only but have empathy for that. But and I think there are parallels with a lot of our patients in chronic pain. I really do. I think that I'm not saying that everybody in chronic pain is an empath, but I think we're just starting to understand the nervous system and where that energy must go, and for you, how you internalize it. For patients in chronic pain, they have very limited ways of expressing what they're going through. I don't think a lot of people want to listen to them. I don't think a lot of their families really understand. I'm just generalizing. I'm not saying everybody.
Yeah,
But
that's
that really
true.
wears you. That really wears you down. I mean, you probably found it frustrating because I didn't really understand much about empaths.
Neither did I.
I'm probably, I wouldn't say the extreme opposite. I'm not, but you have an emotional intelligence and I have a functional intelligence. Like that's how I've been trained. It's just that's how we're geared. It's like chalk and cheese.
It's amazing, isn't it? And I just love some of the things you said, and I'm curious if some of the people here, or if you're watching the replay, can identify with what Mark is saying about internalizing your experience and having a hard time even sometimes describing what you are experiencing. And even when you do, it feels limited, or it's not really heard because it's so hard to describe. It's such an inside, it's such an internal experience that, like you said, people start to shut down, or only be able to function in a limited way, which is where I didn't realize at the time that a lot of what the courses we developed at the pain clinic was actually what I was also experiencing as being helpful. And so I guess one good thing that came out of it was a whole online program at the pain clinic. It didn't obviously all come from there, but I realized everything that I was talking about and having, chronic fatigue and aches and pains was exactly what other people were going through.
I mean, you had the catalyst of COVID to push us into an online program, but I mean, all the factors were there. It was like all the ingredients for the recipe were there. So
yeah. Well, I want to thank you just for that's so interesting. Sure. I think it's good for people to hear another perspective too.
Absolutely.
And I want to get on to what are the things that I've learned along the way that I've now offered in a number of courses privately outside of the clinic to people with highly sensitive or empathic nervous systems, some with chronic pain and some without. Yeah. And I think Karen has it right. The intuitive part of our brain, analytical words part of our brain, sometimes not very connected. So it does make it hard to describe what we feel. And so we're, sometimes just like, why even just try, And that can be a lonely experience. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well, thanks for joining us. And I'm going to keep going with the class today. And yeah, well, I'll have to have you back on sometime to talk more specifically about how it can manifest in illness and pain.
Right. Well, I think you know where to find me. So there you go.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So that was kind of a fun introduction. And honestly, I just asked him like late last night, and I thought it'd be really fun to have you here. So, oh, have enough energy to do kickboxing too. Yay. Never thought I would find. That's the thing, is that if I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't have been so anxious and worried about it, because I would know there's a natural progression to these things. But often at the beginning, you don't know, like, am I ever going to get back to normal? Is my energy ever going to be the same? And it can create a lot of anxiety. So let's just step back for a sec, because I think it helps to talk about what is an empath. And basically, it's someone who feels in their nervous system deeply. And I think that also relates to what Karen was saying. It's hard to describe, often the depth of those feelings. And an emotional empath often senses into others and feels deep empathy. But not only that, they are thought to have hypersensitive mirror neurons. So there's like a physiological reason for this, and deeply resonate with other people's feelings to the point where they feel those feelings in their own body. And I remember these, and you probably do, many situations where I could tell, you can tell, because you're very almost hyper vigilant, very aware, your radar is out for what's happening in the room. You're picking up the energy, because it's energy of it. And you're also tuned into very much like facial expressions and body movements. And here's the thing also about being an empath: if it's incongruent, like, has anybody had that experience where you just know, like, somebody's feeling something, like they're really angry, you can feel they're angry, but they have a smile on their face? That doesn't often get past an empath, because we can feel something's different. And when you're a child, that's very confusing. It's confusing for any child, but a very sensitive one will pick up on the energy, but see something very different on their parent's face. It doesn't make sense. And that's very confusing. Or someone who says, I'm fine, and their teeth are gritted, and you just feel something else in your gut, like in your belly. But they often sense other things deeply as well. And I want to bring also this into it: beauty, art, the weather changes, even excitement, and unfortunately, the more uncomfortable sensations such as pain. So we're very aware and open nervous systems. Sometimes we're born that way. I have, 2 kids. I could see one was born an empath, the other one not so much, still a wonderful kid, different nervous system. We can also be trained that way through our childhood experiences. And it's really hard to tease out what's what, because if you're an empath, you're more likely to pick up also on stress or traumatic experiences. Or if you have, ongoing traumas or distressing situations, you're more likely to become sensitive. So it's chicken and egg type of thing. Some empaths also feel very deeply into people or nature or animals or Mother Earth, and really care deeply. And it wasn't until I had that aha moment that I realized not everybody does this. Like, clearly, when you look around at the world, really, I should have picked up on that. But it's really hard. I couldn't understand why do people do things like that? Because that must really feel shitty to them. But I didn't realize that not everybody has that response. And of course, the other extreme is the narcissistic personality disorder. And that's all on a spectrum. Also, of course, the psychopath, which has no empathy at all, or sociopath. But we're the opposite end of the scale. Slightly different from being a highly sensitive person, and having central sensitization, which is a part of chronic pain, or misophonia. And I'm not going to go into the details right here, but misophonia is being very sensitive to certain noises. And that's a neurological problem. That's where paths have been crossed. If you're someone who really gets angry when someone eats popcorn loudly or breathes in a certain way, then you can hear it. Really, the only treatment for that is getting a good pair of earplugs. And that's misophonia, and that's different. So lots of fun being in one of these things called a nervous system. So I'm going to look at the pros and cons of living in an empath nervous system. Obviously, the pros is that you're deeply feeling and empathetic, and empathy is what connects us. Not having empathy is what disconnects us from ourselves and from others. This is the highest skill available to human beings. I can't emphasize that enough. If there's something that we need more of in this world, it's actually empathy. And this is why I'm so passionate about this, because we need empaths actually to heal and take on, doesn't have to be you, but take on positions of leadership. Because let's face it, the people that are running the world right now, I mean, come on. We also make really good listeners, parents when we're not overwhelmed, caregivers, friends, nurses, therapists, if we're not overwhelmed and burned out. So that's really important. We're often in tune with music, with creativity, with art and nature. We're in tune with the unseen world, is the only way I can put it. Like, you met Mark. Mark's very much in the seen world. He's in the doing world. He's in that masculine energy, which we all have. Sometimes empaths need more of the masculine, the healthy masculine energy in their own bodies. He's in the doing world, and I'm in more of the feeling, the unseen world. But I could probably be doing a little bit more doing, because that's where we get to, when we get to go to kickboxing again, we're doing more doing. It's important. We can also imagine and visualize often easier. And this is what we're going to get to today. This can be a superpower when it comes to manifestation, when it comes to creating new things, like, I can see a world that's led by empaths. I can see it, I can feel it, I can taste it. And so that is where I come from when I'm creating courses. Introverted empaths, which we're not all introverts. Some are extroverts, and those extroverted empaths have to be even more careful about taking the downtime. But they tend to have a higher sensitivity to dopamine, which is a feel-good chemical, than extroverts. And basically, they need less dopamine to feel happy. Now, I'm a person that I'm really happy being alone. And it doesn't mean I don't love people, but I can produce enough dopamine now that I've got my cortisol, my adrenaline, the stress hormones under control. I can produce a lot of dopamine to feel really happy with very little stimulation, with a real, pretty simple life. I'm curious if other people notice that in themselves. Like, often don't need a lot to feel a sense of contentment when we're not worried. And feel free to chat with me I once in a while I'll check the chat box. So the cons, of course, you might have experienced this yourself. For me, there was a switch that flipped at a certain point, and I didn't truly see it coming. I mean, I felt it. I knew things probably were, out of coherence, but I didn't see that. Very prone to burnout, chronic fatigue, anxiety, overwhelm. And then, things to do with the nervous system, such as chronic pain. We tend to be more worried about other people. So if those people out there are okay, then I can rest and relax. And in that, we're very externally focused. So if my boss says I'm doing a good job, that means I'm doing a good job. If that person likes me, then that's good. I can be relieved. You can see the problem with that, right? That outside world is very precarious. And that boss might be accurate, but he might be a total a-hole. And resting your worth in what he or she thinks is probably not a good idea. Because we then tend to avoid criticism, conflict, and pain because it just hurts deeply. Kind of goes back to when, I was looking out at the world thinking, I don't know if people can do stuff like that because that must feel so bad inside of them. But not all people have such a conscience, I suppose, in themselves. They can also become lonely or avoidant because I was talking to a person who is definitely an empath some time ago, and she really wanted to go to the Chapters bookstore, but she said, "Oh, I can't possibly do that. I can't possibly do that because I'm an empath." And that's where I feel like I need to step in and say, you can do that. Don't let being an empath stop you. There's ways. There are ways to regulate and become resilient so that you can go into the busy shopping mall and do what you need to do. Because if we don't challenge ourselves, then we're living a very limited life. People pleasing is one of the number one ways of coping, keeping other people happy. Could have been something you learned growing up. You had to give up, what you really felt to contort into somebody else so that you could be a peacekeeper, you could fit in with your family, all those ways of survival. It starts to work against you at a certain point. And the research now, see, I can't believe that they're not teaching about this. Well, we do at the pain clinic now, but at every pain clinic, at every cancer agency, because we know that this type of, when we don't have access to our own agency to be who we are, we put ourselves in a very vulnerable place for illness. And yeah, anyway, I won't say any more of that now. Shut down, we might feel numb, disconnect, a kind of a feeling of unreality is the only way I can put it. Like you're just in a survival mode. It's a freeze response. Freeze and fawn. So why healing can feel difficult? And then we're going to get on to some good stuff. Basically, because there is a whole world out there that has trained us, I say us, I don't know if it's you or not, but has trained women in general, but particularly sensitive women are going to pick this up too, have this default of a damsel in distress. So being in anxiety, waiting for permission from other people to step into who you truly are, not being able to speak your truth, to have access to your intuition, to your own voice. So you're kind of at the mercy of the outside environment. And that's where we go to healing the root of trauma patterns. Where did we learn that? Okay, it was safe back then. That was the thing to do. How do we step out of that now? And that's a nervous system shift that has to start with safety and grounding and nervous system regulation. Because when you start shifting and changing, you need safety to come back to in your body somewhere, or going to be a ship bobbing out at sea, trying to find some ground. because you're in new territory now. We've often have a background of being told to toughen up, plow through, don't be so sensitive, crybaby. I've heard that from a lot of men. Unfortunately, it just makes me very sad. That it's not, women are told not to get angry. Don't rock the boat, don't ruffle feathers. But what if you're really angry? Well, a lot of people are, and a lot of women are. And women's anger is it's very valid. It's usually directed at some type of injustice. And that's become a very big focus of mine now, is helping women to harness that. Because anyway, I won't get into that too much right now, but it's a really important survival emotion. So when it comes to wealth and abundance, if our nervous system is in this distress, it's very hard to just relax, just calm down, be creative, let money, life, love flow, as we are so used to blocking. Oh, keep it out. Oh, can't do that. And I can feel that tension in my nervous system right now. But here's the key that I found. It's not about blocking emotions, because blocking emotions, it doesn't help. There may be a time to kind of like, if your kid has done something, you're not going to just scream and yell and have a temper tantrum. You're going to, notice it, be honest with yourself, and then find a way to talk about it. Sometimes it involves big shifts. Sometimes it involves changing relationships. Narcissistic people thrive on empaths. It's like this kind of like bond that when it's unhealthy, when it's an unhealthy pattern, which, people that have narcissistic personality disorder are very toxic for empaths. And it involves breaking that bond. And that's something that needs skills and healing. But you don't have to do that right away if that's you too. That's what I always tell. Nobody can tell you it's time to leave that relationship. I know women that have stayed in relationships that they know are not good for them, but they don't feel safe enough to deal with the emotions they're going to have to go through if they leave. That's totally fine. It's your body, your nervous system, and you'll know. So often empaths only get help when they're already depleted. And then we have to, and that's okay. I mean, look what happened to me. I kind of lost a few years of my life there doing the bare minimum. It's still possible. So that's why it can feel like a long road. And emotional regulation has to be part of this plan. Here's a little hint. Not expressing feelings is not regulation. That's a myth. The stone face, they seem so stoic, or like they can make it through everything. That's not emotional regulation. I'll leave it at that for now. So how does this is what we want to know, isn't it? We want to know, how do I create more money, more love, more abundance, more health, more wealth in my life? The traditional ways that we've been taught don't really always work with an empath. Like, get out there and do the thing and launch that product and do that job, ask for that raise. Like, as an empath, I just want to head back to bed now. Sometimes we have a very, very narrow focus. I did for a long time, when we're just in survival and trying to get through. And often because we've been given the feedback that there's something wrong with you for being sensitive, what's the matter with her? Why can't she, whatever, speak up? Why can't she do her thing? Why you're not doing things? Often that leads to this core wound of unworthiness, something wrong with me. And that affects our money flow. They're very related. We're controlling ourselves, controlling other people through people pleasing, versus tuning in. And we're going to talk about that. We might miss opportunities trying to come our way because we're avoiding, maybe if I had gone to that trip to the mall, I might have run into someone who said, hey, I've got this great job for you. I mean, that's just one example. When we avoid, we miss opportunities. And the fear, what if I get sick again? What if I get tired or overwhelmed or have pain? So it's a very different approach to success and abundance. And we worry, I'm not going to be able to cope. I'm not going to be able to handle it. So we actually have to expand our nervous systems to be able to hold wealth and abundance. I've worked with actually many successful, financially successful women who are empaths. And what some of them have found is that they have success, and perhaps they end up having, a lot of abundance. They make a lot of money in their business or whatever they're doing, but then somehow they can't seem to hold it. And then they'll, spend it. And so it's kind of easy come, easy go. And because our beliefs or our nervous system hasn't expanded enough to be able to sit and relax and hold it. That's a whole other thing. But, and often there's beliefs around that. Okay, so let's shift gears here. Let me know if you have any questions as we move along that I can touch on for you. When it comes to wealth, everything is abundance, and that includes the energy of money. Now, money is something that is also, it's just a neutral energy. And the reason I bring it in here is because for a lot of people coming from the last generation, being brought up by the last generation, it can be a very loaded topic. And there's a lot of beliefs that come along with it. And depending on how your parents or your family approached money or wealth. So it's something to give some thought to. But let's widen the scope and think about what you are wealthy in right now. Because I can have all the money in the world, but if I don't have the safety of a home, of a safe country, of, a child that's not well, that's not going to mean a whole lot. That's why we expand. And right now, if you have a journal with you, this is the beginning of shifting the energy of an empath, okay? To start listing everything that you are wealthy in right now. Because money, it's an energy. Empaths, we work with energy. And to start, because you'll see why this isn't so important. Because when you start to block things, you're in resistance. And we've learned very well how to block. So this is a process of learning now to receive and open, and not like wide open, because you're going to end up back in bed, but in a very different way. So right now, I'm really wealthy with all the people that are joining me here today. I am really wealthy with even the experience that I've had that I can bring to you. I'm so wealthy having this computer and access to Wi-Fi. I'm wealthy with a roof over my head. I've got warmth and it's cold out there. All of these things, and so start stepping into that, please. Being is the key. You can't attract something you're resisting or believing is bad. I really want to be able to relax. That's why I want wealth. I want enough money so I can relax. No. Start relaxing now. I'm not enough. I'm not enough to be able to create wealth in my life. Well, for as long as you're believing that, how can wealth find you? So right now, or I was working with somebody the other day and she said, well, I've only got this many clients right now. So when we focus on what we don't have, which our brains are trained to do through something called the negativity bias, it's very hard for us to open up to what we want to come to us. So if she's focused, I only have this many, I only have, the shift that she made during our session was, I get to work with these people. I am so lucky. They're coming to me to work with me. And that level of excitement, of energy. Now, if you're depressed right now, do not force yourself to go up there. It's inauthentic. There are steps, right? She had that available to her that day. And from there, she got 2 clients calling her that emailed her during our session. And this is the way that energy works. I kind of feel tingly in my hands talking about that. So love attracts more. This is not just the law of attraction. I'm talking quantum energy and healing. And you'll feel it, it'll work. Love attracts more love, joy attracts more joy, pleasure attracts more pleasure, and appreciation for wealth attracts more wealth. Staying in resistance in a small place and anxiety and stress attracts more resistance, anxiety, and stress. If somebody would have told me this 5 years ago, I don't know if I would have really believed them. I would be like, yeah, that's all that, woo-woo stuff. But I have a probably partly out of desperation, really found that this is where I gained traction. Moving from, I don't want to that, to, oh, I see that, but I'm choosing this. I don't want that person to call me. Oh, okay. Well, I can see that, or I don't want that person in my life. That's a very stressful energy. You know what? I'm choosing to be with these people. So you're going from, I hate that, to, I could do that, but I'm choosing this and I get to do it my way. From this is too, this is just too much. Maybe you're in a stressful work environment. Maybe you got lots going on in your life right now. There's a lot happening in people's lives. There's a lot happening in the world. So much of my empathy to you. And when we go to, it's just too much right now, just recognize that in your body and use that as a cue to say, I'm going to take care of my stress right now by doing this. That's choice. And maybe there are changes to make, maybe there are. But you can feel the difference in the nervous system being in charge, being the chooser, and you always get to choose your response. So we're almost at the really good stuff here. And then I'm going to tell you about the course that I'm offering. You've already got this. If emotions are your superpower, and we know that if everything is energy, emotions are energy, we can harness these high intensity emotions of the empath to work for us. And you've already got that. It's not like you have to, well, we have to work on our emotional regulation, but you already know about emotions. Not everybody does. And emotions are what attracts and repels. And when empaths learn this skill, they are unstoppable because you feel more in control, really. I never thought that I could do this 5 years ago, just jumping on here and talking about something that's really coming from my heart. I'd have to have it scripted out. I'd have to be controlled about it, all those things. So emotions take us into this quantum field. And this is the field where we're out of the narrow vision and so many more choices are available to us that we maybe can't see right now. It's stepping into an unknown that often doesn't have a plan and often doesn't have even expectations, and opening up in a way that new ideas, new wealth, new projects, and new people new sources of income can come to you. And we learn skills to harness, focus, and amplify that field. We've always been trained to look outside of ourselves, so we might miss our very own power of the empath. And I'm living, breathe. I can live and breathe. I've lived to tell you this. This is entering what I call, not what I call, this is what physicists and other people call the quantum field. It involves blocking the leaks. So if you're like a sieve, like a sieve, like a strainer, you're always going to be leaking to other people, to needy people, rather than supporting and loving people. You're giving of yourself, over giving, or to to things that don't feed you, that don't fill your own cup. Because the outside, if we're relying on it, it's not reliable. And empaths have this ability to give and receive at a very high level. So, skill number 1, here we are. From what I can give you in an hour. The very first skill, embodied boundaries. And this is plugging the energy leaks, to know where you end and another begins. And this is to become aware of emotional contagion. Emotional contagion is where you kind of catch other people's emotions and you discern, is that mine or theirs? It's really important, because if you're always out there looking after other people, there's nobody home here to receive all the wealth that's waiting for you, because you're over there. You have to have boundaries, embody boundaries around your time, your space, and your energy, telling you that you are worthy of that. And we work in small incremental ways, but it's not just saying no. Saying no is kind of, that can just really fall flat quickly. It's actually being able to feel yourself and create, I call it creating your own territory. Like, you're the lioness, you rule your territory, and other people respect that. And it's an energy. And boundaries are directly related to your health and your wealth. They have to be. If you can't set boundaries, you're going to be running yourself into fatigue and depletion so quickly that you won't have the health and the wealth of a stable foundation. The second skill, how we move with this energy, is to expand and contract, and expand and contract. And this cycle might come daily, it might come hourly, it might come monthly, it might come yearly, it might be a season. And it's what we call in the pain world pacing. But this is it's not so much doing, it's an energetic expansion and then coming back home. And moving from, I got to fix this so I can do more, to having faith. I'm expanding for this hour so I can be here and be present with you. And you can bet that after this hour, I'm going to take some time to, lovingly contract with myself. And this I learned out of absolute necessity. Don't follow what the world tells you to do. Follow your own nervous system. And if you work in a very busy job, find ways to expand and contract within your job, even if you just have to go to the bathroom and take 3 deep breaths, so that you can start to work and start to notice what your own zone of genius is. And that takes a little time. But when you start working only in your zone of genius, there's always the mundane tasks to do. But nowadays, I try to only work in my zone of genius. And how do I know I'm here? Because right now I feel so connected in my body and with what I'm talking about and with the people that I'm talking to. This is my zone of genius. And we all have one. And we put upper limits on ourselves. We stop our own expansion because it can feel unknown and scary. And Gay Hendricks, psychologist, talks about this in a book called The Big Leap a lot. So, essential skill number 3, being and receiving. Empaths are very good at the energy of giving, of forward moving, of giving. But I mean, really leaning back into receiving. And if you say, well, nothing's coming my way, oh yeah, there is a lot right now that just in the act of receiving, you will start to see. And you have to be what you want to receive. So if I say, well, I'm only going to be happy when I get this, I'm only going to be happy when I move, I'm only going to be happy when I get this job, it moves farther away from you. What you want to do is be that now as best as you can. How can I find ways in this moment to feel 10% more happy? Rather than living in the if, when, the when, then, stress response. Notice your upper limit problems and where you self-sabotage. So that's what I talked about just now with Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap. We have upper limits where we stop ourselves because we get scared. And, you know, this is a very feminine energy. And I talk about feminine and masculine energies a lot because it's just a good way of describing, you know, the doing and then the feeling and receiving. And the doing and the expansion and the contraction. But we have largely been trained out of this divine feminine energy that is actually a more powerful force. And coming out of the cult of overdoing, the cult of busyness, because it's not sustainable. And trust it that more is coming. Trust that when you receive, there's an energetic, when you be and receive, there is still an energetic exchange, and it's not laziness. That's old programming. So these are the energetic shifts that empaths can make right now to start stepping into today, not tomorrow, today, into more wealth and abundance. So go back and watch this recording again and start in very micro ways bringing this into your life. And because guess what? The world is ready, more than ready, for empaths to thrive. We've been kind of hidden away in the closets for a long time. And we are the ones that welcome everybody to the table when we're healthy and when we're well balanced and we're not staying in the wounded. Because our whole world is changing very quickly. You guys know this. The old paradigm of fear and control is no longer sustainable. It's falling apart. And right now, it can be pretty destructive out there. It's entirely possible for you to heal, to move through those upper limits and thrive. Promise you, every single one of you. And there are very specific steps to take, and expect those potholes. Because when you fall in a pothole, that's information like, oh, I didn't know I had that belief. I didn't know that. And that's like gold to work on. And that's where my background as a trauma therapist just comes right to the fore. And we get in there and we work on those potholes. Because when you move to higher levels, you get to heal the emotions and beliefs that are in the way. So it's almost like in my new course that I'm going to talk to you about right now, the Quantum Empath, we start with the end in mind. Well, the end is never the end, but and then we heal everything that everything that's getting in the way of us being able to step into who we truly are now. Maybe it's the voice. We got things for that. Maybe it's the fear. Maybe it's the anger. Maybe it's what that teacher said to you in grade 2. We clear that out. And when you clear the blocks and gain emotional mastery, you start to rise. And that's very exciting to me. And this is why I've created quite a few courses for empaths. And as I evolve, I create new courses. And if you're at the very beginning of this, that's okay, because this particular course is going to cover that as well. So let me tell you about it. This is a 4-week course that I might rope Mark in a little bit to do with me, because I think that energy is also good. Starting on October 31st, we have our opening call, and our training starts on training. That sounds like funny saying training. I feel like I'm, training an empath army here, which I literally feel like I want to, because what could be more of an effective army than an empath army? Healed empath. And our training starts on November 1st, and it runs through November to take you out of a small mindset that you've been living in into this quantum field, to know that's a possibility for you. Because so many people I know are living in very small worlds. It's a step-by-step process to move from prey to power. And what I mean by being prey is prey to your emotions, prey to other people, prey to the world, definitely prey to the news. And I mean prey not as in prey, but prey as in prey and predator. This is a nervous system shift. Absolutely, 100%. We've often been trained to be prey, to flop, to appease, to shut down, to people please, to keep the peace. That's the energy of prey. And you have that healthy assertion, aggression inside of you that says, whoa, 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 wait a minute. This is what I stand for. And that's power. And we're going to take deep dives to heal blocking beliefs and root patterns and emotional expression and regulation, because we've been stuffing for a long time. And like Mark said in the beginning, that comes out, it has to come out in other ways. Releasing old emotions. I've got some really powerful breathwork journeys planned, as well as a sacred rage workshop. It's called a Sacred Rage Salon, where we actually get to release and get to know our own anger that will stand up for ourselves and protect us. And boundaries, creating your own territory. Identifying those relationships in your life, if you have them still, and learning to trust yourself again using embodiment, trusting your body again. Because so many empaths live in indecision. Should I, shouldn't I? What's right? What's wrong? Is this right? And it's a paralysis. We want to move out of the freeze and move into feeling fully alive in who we are. And from there, we step into the possibilities of receiving abundance, because you know you're worth it, you know you're deserving, you know that that's what you're here for. So right now, what I'm offering in this 1-month course, and I just added another bonus, is we have a 4-week training, weekly trainings. It's actually twice a week. Everything's recorded. We have weekly coaching lessons, and then we have 1 deep dive healing session. It doesn't sound like a long time. So it is an immersion. And why is that? Because you have lifetime access to the lessons that we cover to go back to. Because I know right now, the way things are changing in the world, that your body and your wanting and your desires are also changing. And so, yes, your nervous system changes over time, but I want to give you a roadmap for it. Also, what I'm offering with it is my Empath Sanctuary 3-month course that I did from the very beginning, that will take you through. This is something you can work on through the next year if you want to. The steps, the to become more alive as an empath. And with that, there's a whole video library, a resource library. Another thing I've just added is the Lifting Above Shame course that I did some time back. And it was a really interactive, wonderful course because we internalize things, as Mark said in the very beginning, and that often kind of manifests in a feeling of shame. And if you really like the books of Brene Brown, you'll know what I'm talking about. So one thing that I have just added, because this is the first month coming up of the Quantum Empath. This is going to be the very first month. People that join me in the first month, this is what I'm kind of so excited to tell you about, will be able to repeat this course in subsequent months. Why? Because I know that it's going to shift and change and shift and change. And if you feel compelled to join me now, from what I've said, from what I'm talking about, if it resonates with you, then for this, like 50% off, it's going to go up to $888 on Friday at midnight. It's well worth over to $2,500. You're going to be able to repeat this. Some of you are already in the course, and I didn't tell you this either, that you can repeat it with a new group each time, because we change and we evolve. And so when it repeats itself throughout the year, next year, maybe one at December might be pushing it, that you can join in that group as well. So that will never happen again. And that's how excited I am about this. And I want to see, if for some reason I'm not able to put the link in the chat, which is unfortunate. I've never figured out how people do that. Yeah, I wonder if I can put it. Yeah, doesn't seem to want to paste. It's okay. So let me stop the share and just come back. And so great that y'all are still here. And just see if there's any questions or anything that anybody wants to add. What I'll do is I'm going to send you the link to all the details in the follow-up email with the recording. So let me check, because it has become kind of out of default. It's kind of become my default, just from my own life experience, to know that this absolutely is possible. And I'm still always learning and growing and noticing and healing different things. But all I know now is that I have energy, and that I went to a kickboxing class. And I think it was also in that moment that I was just looking around me going, I just can't believe that I'm here. And all the things that I've learned along the way. So let me know if anybody here has any questions about that. And it's going to be a very interactive group. So you'll have lots of time to ask questions. How do I deal with this toxic situation? How do I move through this block? And it's a very private, confidential, safe group that we'll be doing like on the spot coaching. And I'm going to be available for that. What are the days and times? Yeah, great question. That's why I wish I could put this link in here. Tuesdays nope. So our opening class is 31st on Halloween at 1 o'clock. There's a reason we're starting on Halloween. I won't go into that now. And then our weekly classes are 11 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesdays. And into November here. 11 a.m. on Wednesdays and 1 p.m. Yeah, 1 p.m. on Thursdays. And we start next week. And as I said, everything's, recording. The anger salons are amazing. And now I'm getting a lot of people coming into them. And there's a lot of reasons why we do that, because anger has been given a very, very bad rap for women. And really, when we don't have anger, it's very hard to stand up and protect yourself. And I don't mean explosive anger, and I don't mean seething resentment. I mean that healthy continuum of, you know what, that didn't work for me right there, what you said. So now I'm standing up for myself. And it's that healthy aggression. And I'll use the word aggression because it's along the same energetic continuum that says, I'm worth protecting. This world is worth protecting. My kids are worth protecting. And it's a very evolutionary protective energy that we actually need. And it's very linked with chronic pain in women. It's very linked with cancer and breast cancer. And it kind of brings me naturally, that question or that comment brings me to, we're starting on Halloween. Halloween was when my mom passed away 10 years ago. And she was a very artistic, creative, intuitive, sensitive person. And living in this world, I can see how she had to repress her own anger. But it was still there, it was still there. And it does lead, it wasn't the only reason, obviously, there were genetics involved, but it does lead to, you're more likely to have that expression of cancer. So this is really important work for me. This is really important work. Yeah, private one-on-one coaching is part of this too. So it's not private one-on-one. Thanks for that question. We do the group training on the Wednesdays and the group lessons. And then the Thursdays, and within those, there's always Q&A. There's always coaching involved with the group. Because I'm available for this month, if there's something really coming up for you, you post it in the Facebook group or you message me, and then we can either address it live or I can teach it in the next class. So that's how it's interactive. It's all recorded. So everything's recorded, goes in the portal, and then you have access to these lessons. And the thing about the private Facebook group is I've done a lot of these classes before, these courses, and I'm very active in that group. So I'm popping in, I'm doing videos, I'm giving almost daily tips because it's an intense month. And that's a group you can always be a part of and come back to. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that answers the question. So good. All right. Well, we didn't go too much over time. And if these 3 steps really made sense to you and they're enough for you to work with, then proceed onwards, dear empath, into your life. And I wish you all the best. And always, feel free to message me. Let me know how it's working out and what's getting in the way, because I'm always curious, and I'm always interested in helping empaths to thrive beyond anxiety, beyond chronic pain, beyond illness, and beyond chronic fatigue. So, all right. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll send it out shortly with the link, and then you can see more of the details. All right. And sign up if you're going to by Friday night at midnight before the price goes up. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye for now. Have a great day.